I know people always say they're so afraid of what could go wrong. And I always say, well, what could go right? And a lot of things could go right. And, you could look at me, you could look at you, you could look at the tens of thousands of other people who have invested in real estate. And they've all said the same thing. Yes, it's a little scary when you get involved. Certainly it gets scary as you get older and you have, families and kids to be dependent upon you. But generally, it doesn't go wrong.
Hey.
Welcome to the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. I'm your host, Dwan Twyford. I'm America's most sought after real estate investor. And I am so excited today because I have got a wicked smart man that's going to share what he does and help us learn and educate, just expand everything that we all want to know about investing and just life in general. So first I want to say hi, Todd. Welcome to the show today.
Well, thank you for having me, Dwan. Looking forward to it.
I'm really excited. So he's in Hollywood, Florida, and I'm in a hotel. So I am also in Florida. So I'm in Tampa. So we're a little bit, at opposite ends of the spectrum, but we're both in Florida today. So that's kind of a fun thing. And as you all know, you can go to Dwanderful. So Dwan and Wonderful made a new word, Dwanderful.com. Opt in. I've got a free ebook for you. Flip your way to a fortune. And our motto at Dwanderful is people before profits. So if that resonates with you, you're at the right place. This is the right time. I'm your girl. He's your guy. And we're just going to have some fun today. So again, welcome to the show today. And what we like to do, Todd, as we start off is we have a toast.
I like it.
Now we're and we're both drinking water. So we're both boring today, but cheers. And everybody, just take a deep breath and take a stretch and just kind of shake off whatever you got going on and just open your mind and have some fun with us today. And you're going to learn and you're going to laugh and you're going to be happy that you spent this time with us. So Todd, you are the wicked smart man today.
I appreciate that. I don't hear that very often, so I'll take it.
Yes. So what we like to do is I like for you to tell everybody who you are, how to get a hold of you, and a very short version of what you do. And then we're going to ask a bunch of questions and find out how you became who you are.
All right. In a nutshell, my name is Todd Nepola. I'm the president and founder of Current Capital Real Estate Group. We're based in Hollywood, Florida, and we own, operate, and manage and lease real estate, commercial real estate only, from Hollywood, Florida, north to Jacksonville, only on the east coast of Florida. We started the company a little over 20 years ago. Prior to that, I was in investment banking, and I decided I wanted some cash flow, so I started buying my properties. I purchased my first property in June of 1998, so going on my 25th year anniversary. And I still own that property to this day, and it still cash flows to this day. And I've become obsessed over the years with not just owning and operating real estate, but also giving back. And I authored my own book last year called Keeping It Real on Commercial Real Estate, where all proceeds of that book go to charity, and it's my way of kind of giving back and reaching the audience, which is why I also do these podcasts to get people involved in investing, kind of the same thing you're doing.
I love it. And how do people reach you?
The easiest way to reach me, if you want to ask me a question, I'm always available, is my email. It's todd@cc-reg.com. My office phone number is 954-966-8181, or you could DM me on Instagram at Life According to Todd, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys got. And I get a lot of questions, and I do reply, and people are shocked that I reply. But anyone who's looking at a deal, a commercial deal, and wants my 2 cents, I'm happy to give it.
Okay, give me your email again.
Todd@cc-reg.com.
EG.com. Okay, that's something I didn't get quite to write that down. So I like so Life According to Todd is on Instagram.
That's it.
Oh, I love that. Okay, well, after we're done today, I'm going to be following Life According to Todd. I like that. I like that. So your group is Current Capital, and so what is it that you guys do?
We specialize in investment properties that are primarily in the retail and industrial sector. Now, there's a lot of people Only that's it. So what I could tell you is in the last 3 years, we purchased around 700,000 square feet of retail property and one building of 10,000 square feet of industrial, because industrial has been ridiculously impossible to buy in the state of Florida, pretty much everywhere. But prior to that, we were probably buying a lot more industrial because people, want the retail. So we
Yeah.
kind of go where the opportunity is, but we exclusively only own those two property classes.
Nice. So you lend money to like people like me. I want to buy something like that, and you lend. Is that
No,
correct?
we don't lend any money. We are the buyers.
Oh, you buy. So you
Yeah.
buy all this. Oh, well, that is really good then.
Yeah.
So yeah, because there's not a lot of people that specialize in buying specifically just commercial, and
Yep.
I feel like it's a really undervalued area. Like not enough people buy industrial and commercial because they want to stick to homes or multi units or whatever they do. But I don't know. I buy a lot of commercial too. I feel like it's a really
It's a
good.
great asset class, and I think people get intimidated by it. And I think everyone feels that they understand how an apartment or a house works because they live in one, and they think that commercial is so much more complicated. But really, to me, the opposite is the case, and I find commercial a lot less stressful than residential. And
Totally.
certainly, the last few years with all the restrictions on evictions, commercial has been much more beneficial to the owners.
Oh my gosh, the whole thing with the evictions, it was like, and we have a lot of single family homes, and luckily, all my tenants paid, and I worked with everyone I needed to work with. But it's funny, I have just gotten in the last 5 years, like really into buying a lot of commercial. And my husband's from a town called Clinton, Iowa. And in the last 5 years, we've bought 20 commercial buildings.
That's amazing. Good
And
for you.
I've only owned, in my whole 30 years, I owned two. And then in the last 5 years, we bought five. And I love it. I love the town and the commercial and, the renovating and renting them out. And like, I love the whole thing. I don't know why more people don't do it.
I'm with you. That's why I promote the hell out of it. And I'm not a broker. I'm not trying to sell it either. I just think that it's the greatest asset class to own.
It is. It is. So you guys buy from Hollywood up to Jacksonville. And so when you're buying, like, give us an example of some stuff that you would invest in. Like,
Well,
what would
what
be
we-
good? Because whatever you're doing would be good for other people too.
Well, I mean, look, when I first started, the first building I ever bought in June 1998, that was the days when the banks were in trouble. It seems that history is kind of repeating itself a little here, but the
Yes, it
banks
is.
were in trouble, and I bought it from a foreclosure from a bank. It was actually a Canadian bank, and it was a 13,000 square foot warehouse that someone had developed and went broke on. And I paid $575,000 for it. Like I said, I still own it to this day, and I wouldn't sell it for 10 times that amount, which is why I'm a buyer and holder. I don't flip. I don't cash out. I don't like to do that. I like to stabilize them and keep them. And the last deal we just did was in December of last year. We bought 170,000 feet of retail that had 30% vacancy, which we believe was because of bad management, for $25 million. So we're kind of all over the place in that spectrum. And we started at one point and we're here now. Our typical deal now is between around $10 million and $30 million.
Okay, so you do some pretty big deals.
Yeah.
And 30 million, like those are big deals. Like of course, I'm in Clinton, Iowa too. My most expensive building was like $500,000.
But those are great. I tell people stories about all the little ones I buy, and I love it. So I would rather buy a $500,000 building than a $500,000 car or a vacation home. I just want to own the property. It's kind of like playing Monopoly. So that's my fun.
Yeah, no, I was the same way. People were always like, Dwan, because I have a Hummer. It's like 15 years old. You should buy a new car. I'm like, okay, this car works great. It looks beautiful. It's perfect. There's no car payment. I'd rather take the money and I'd rather buy something.
I'm the same way. Just keep buying more real estate. It's more fun.
Yeah, it is for me too. So you guys buy a lot of commercial and then rent the spaces out, I'm assuming.
Yeah, what we look for is a property that's generally from the 70s, 80s, or 90s that we could add value by re-tenanting in them, refacing them, and putting new facades, re-landscaping, new lighting, adding improvements that could add value, whereby we could go from some less valuable tenants and try and bring in the better ones, whether it's a small restaurant becomes a Chipotle, or a little place becomes an urgent medical center, and just improving the properties, stabilizing them, and like I said, then just keeping them and cash flowing them and collecting the dividends every month.
Yeah, no, I love it. So when you rent out one of your spaces, what kind of a lease do you give your tenants?
Well, on all our spaces now, we do triple net leases. There are some tenants which won't go for that. Like we just did a lease with the state of Florida, and because of their budget, you will have to work with them. That's a gross lease, not because of their budget. But a triple net lease allows a landlord to charge a base rent of X dollars and then a pass through of the expenses. And that's the best thing for the landlord because, like right now in Florida, our insurance rates are going through the roof. I'm able to pass that off to my tenant because I could spread that out across the property. If I did a gross lease and the bills go up, I'm stuck with that, which means I'll make less money. So we do all triple net leases.
So triple net. So for a person that does not know what that means, let's just say, I don't know, someone's going to rent a space out for $2,000 a month. What does that mean, triple net?
Well, what it means in triple net lease is that the rent is broken into pieces. So to make it simple, I guess you could equate it to if you went to the restaurant and you bought your meal and it was $50, it's $50 plus sales tax. So maybe your rent would be $500 plus your share of the insurance, your share of the real estate taxes, and your share of the common area maintenance charges for the property, and then sales tax too, of course, equals your total rent. But this protects the landlord, and it also helps the tenant too, because at times when bills go down, the tenants get the benefit of that.
Yeah.
Obviously, the last couple of years, it's gone straight up, but it's the fairest way.
I like that because in our buildings are in Clinton, Iowa. So, you know, it's freezing in Iowa. And a couple of the buildings that we bought were really old, so they still have a boiler.
Right.
Now, the gas was whatever it was, 10 cents or something. Now the gas is like 80 cents. So this one building, so the gas is in the winter. And it was like, I don't know, we paid like $3,000 a month, you know, but now this last year it was like 12,000. I'm like, oh my God. So I should have had some triple net leases.
Yeah, and the truth is, if you're trying to finance deals, the banks, you know, they're going to want triple net leases because, you know, the banks want security and they want to know that your income is not going to be adjusted very much and you have the ability to pass this off to the tenant. And the truth is, if you have 5 tenants, it's a lot easier for them to absorb it versus you getting hit with one thing too.
Yeah, so that's kind of what we do now. Like the new people that move in, it's like, well, your rent is this, common area maintenance is this, you know, heat and electric is this, but we're trying to get rid of all those these are old buildings. I'm trying to get rid of all those old boilers and give every individual space its own, you know, heat, electric, and everything, and make them fully responsible for all the stuff. But yeah, we had to really do a lot of readjusting the last couple of years because the price of stuff went up so much.
Yeah, so much and so quickly. You know, it was hard to justify, but at least our tenants accept it because everywhere you look, everything went up. So nobody was really surprised to see it.
I know every little thing. So yeah, so it's funny because we did that basically like triple net leases, but a couple of tenants got really upset about how high the heat bill was. Like I have nothing to do with the heat. Like it was here and then it was up here. So we try to get people, like, if you break, so, you know, we don't want people to move out and break their leases and stuff like that either. Do you do 5-year leases?
We do all kinds of leases. We'll do 1, 3, 5, 10, you know, it depends on the tenant. But, you know, to your point, what you just said, how your tenant got upset with the bill, you know, I equate that to people in their home versus in a hotel. And I laugh because in your home, when you leave, you turn off the lights, you yell at your kids if they don't turn the TV off when we're out of the room. But in a hotel, everybody leaves the AC on 69 and the lights on because they're not paying for it.
That's exactly right.
When you have common area maintenance and the tenants are saying, so we say, understand, you're using it, you're paying for it. And we tell them that with the waste, if you don't want to break your boxes down and put it into the recycle bin, don't get mad when you see the waste bill. And people are more, you know, cognizant of what they're doing because they're going to pay.
It's so funny because we see people out back now because they're all commercial spaces. They're out back at night breaking their boxes and stuff that like 2 years ago people didn't want to do. And it's like, it's funny, like when they have to pay more, all of a sudden they're like, oh, you know what?
Maybe I could help.
Maybe I could help. I know I had one woman that really had a nice shop. She's like, I'm not paying that extra electric. And she moved. And I was like, you're not going to find anything anyplace else. Like it didn't just go up in my building. It's everywhere. It went up everywhere.
It is. And, you know, that's, you know, like as things go up, people do have to make decisions and move. And sometimes it does affect their budgets. And, you know, there will be casualties every time prices increase. I mean, that's just That's what the government's trying to do. They're trying to slow things down, so there will be casualties.
Yeah, no, there is. So when you're looking, so if I'm a brand spanking new investor and I want to buy my first commercial building, what would you recommend that someone look for? Like, what would be for just figure someone that's been investing for less than 5 years, like kind of a newbie, and they're like, oh, I've been doing single family homes. I'd like to buy something commercial. What would be a thing for someone to look for?
Well, the first thing I tell, because I get that question a lot, it's a great question. I tell everybody is first, don't travel so far away. I've been doing this now nearly 30 years. And I tell people the furthest property I own, I could drive to in 4 hours and turn around and come back. So that's one of my rules. I like to be able to leave in the morning, see my property, do what I have to do, and be home for a late dinner. Some people think, well, I could get a better deal and they're inexperienced and they'll buy out of state. And they could get themselves in trouble because they don't know what they're looking for. And
Yes.
you may be comparing prices of property. Like, I live in South Florida, but things are very expensive to, like you said, Iowa. And there's different prices and
Oh my
different rents.
God,
So
it's
you
like
need to
sticker
be
shock.
experienced. Right. I also tell people look for something that you could add value, assuming you have time. If you're a very busy professional or whatever, and you don't have any value, time to give, then you got to find something stabilized. But if you're really looking to be an investor, find something you could add value to. Find a building that has been run down, maybe has a broken window, is not being painted, the landscaping's a mess. Find a small building, and to me, I like more tenants rather than one big one. So
Yeah,
maybe you
me
could
too.
find even yeah, maybe you find a 3,000 square foot building with three little 1,000 square foot units, or it's 3,000. You could easily divide it back into three 1,000 square foot units. You get out there like I did in my first building. I hired my friends back then. We painted the buildings. I did the leasing. I did the collection rents. I was everything. And I had a full time job. So I didn't give up my job. I did both while I managed this. It wasn't
Right.
until about 5, 6 years later that I exclusively went into real estate. Now I'm lucky I have a big team, but we have a lot of real estate. But
Yes.
getting started, you have to find something you could add value to. And if you want to be in the real estate investing world, you have to be able to do that and locate that. And it's possible, but it's a little bit of work.
Yeah, no, it can be, but it's really true. There, curb appeal is so important. People just don't realize how important curb appeal is. And whether it's, commercial or single family homes or anything, if you can make it look better, smell better, feel better, safer, lights, whatever it is, that stuff does go a long way with people that are
Right.
going to rent. And I'm with you. It's like if I have a 3,000 square foot, I'd rather have three little spaces than one giant tenant because if that one giant tenant gets in trouble, your whole building is empty.
That's right.
And if one person moves out, ideally the other one's like it compensates for it like that. And so that's kind of one of the things that we did. We took one of our buildings and it had a couple big long bays, and I was like, no, we made a bunch of smaller ones. I'm like, otherwise you have all your eggs in one basket.
I turn down so many deals where these big boxes are. If you have one space that's 30 or 40,000 feet, I mean, and they say, oh, it's the best tenant. And I say, well, the best tenant years ago, I remember, was the Sports Authority, but I can't find them anymore. It was Circuit
Yes,
City, but I can't find them anymore.
yes.
So these guys can go out of business too. And I don't care how much money you have. When you're losing rent, and we manage some centers with these kind of tenants where you're getting 60, 70, $80,000 a month in rent check, that vacancy is painful. And if you think that's painful, wait till the new tenant comes in and you pay the broker's commissions, you pay all the tenant improvement allowances, and you do all the work you got for the new tenant. It could be $1 million. It could bankrupt you. So I stick to small stuff.
It's funny. I know in Denver, so we have a house in Denver and Florida, and I used to always love Circuit City.
Yeah.
I was like, I've been, because I've been going there. Like that was one of my first credit cards back when I was in my 20s. And one day they were just like closed, and I was like, oh, what happened? And then they're all closed, all closed. And in our area, the Whole Foods moved in,
Yeah.
took over some of those buildings. Which,
Yeah.
but again, it's like it's a massive warehouse, and then it's empty. And you got to find another massive tenant or spend a ton of money
Right.
trying to break a building like that up because they're like 50,000 square feet. Like, how are you going to break all that up without spending a fortune?
Yeah. It can't be done. And even if you could break it up, it doesn't work because generally these kinds of stores are very deep and long and they have no frontage, which is the complete opposite of what smaller stores want. So you'll have like a bowling alley. It just won't work.
I like strip malls. Do you have strip malls?
That's what we pretty much exclusively have at strip centers like that.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I love strip malls. We
Mhm.
bought a couple of those. It's funny that I had, we were investing for, I mean, I've been investing for 30 years when we just 33 and we just kind of started into the thing. And I was like, oh, there's a strip mall. It's got, you know, all the little things. And so we ended up getting a bunch of buildings like that, opposed to a giant. I mean, mostly I think because in Clinton, Iowa, they don't have a big, super giant
Right.
store like that in the downtown area. But I love the little strip malls.
You
They're
know,
like
they're
such a
fan,
good
they're the best
investment.
investments. They're the best ones you could get because especially with the smaller locations. I remember I bought one. It was actually a Thanksgiving Day. The seller called me because she was frustrated and wanted to sell. And I still own it to this day. I bought it, that one, I think it was in 2000. And it's 10 units, 700 square feet apiece. But you know, they're just little shells with a front door and a bathroom. And all you have there is you could have an insurance agent. I have an ice cream guy. I have a tax
Yeah,
guy. I have a real estate guy. I have a chiropractor. I have a window tint guy. And
yeah,
you know, the so-called death of retail, those businesses are always going to be there and not going to be replaced by Amazon. So you're always going to have a user. Always,
yeah.
always, always.
Yeah, and there's always little people. We have one of our stores where this young couple, they're like 24 and they're married, and they opened up for country western clothing.
Yep.
And I was like, okay. And the store is beautiful, but they show horses and like they're into like the whole thing. That store is packed.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like they're young, and I'm like, oh, they're a young couple, they're newly married, you know, they're opening their own store. Like, you know, I'm excited to be a part of that. But they couldn't rent even a 5,000 square foot space because it's, you know, they have a little space, but it's packed, and there's just people in and out like revolving doors all the time. So those little spaces are good because there's a lot of people that want to start a business without having to buy the building.
You know, more so than ever now. And I think that's the way things are going to go. You know, I like to look into this and study because it is my business. And
Yeah.
we call it like incubator spaces.
Yeah.
There's so many people who really don't want to get a job anymore and work 9 to 5. And they realize that that's burnout. So they're becoming entrepreneurs. They're starting a side hustle and they want a small space. So they don't want a 3,000 square foot space with thousands of dollars. They want 5, 6, 700 square feet
Yep.
just to get their blueprint out there and, you know, footprint out there. And that's how they're getting started. And I think that's going to be the way it's going to go for a long time now.
I think so too. Having just done these buildings in the last 5 years, like we have a little space that does the country western clothing, and there's a little space where she has a very small bakery. I mean, people just like, I can't believe the lines to buy those cupcakes. And then like another little guy has like she's a nurse. She has like a little holistic nurse kind of massages, and she makes all this homemade soap. And sometimes I'm like, okay, is that a whole business? But she's packed.
Yep.
And it's nice to see all the little things. And every single one of them they're all entrepreneurs. Nobody's like, oh, I'm opening up a chain and I need a space. Every single tenant I have is an entrepreneur. Now, some of them they do great, some don't do so great. Some have stayed in, some we've helped them out for a few months here and there. But it's just nice to see like the entrepreneurship is so alive.
Absolutely. You know, you've been doing this even longer than I have, so you probably know it better than me. But I've watched my tenants grow up with me. Like I said, I was 25 when I made my first purchase. I have tenants now who are now like group me, and they're becoming grandparents. They had kids. I watched their kids grow up. Their kids have kids. You know, I watched them from kindergarten. They graduated college. Now they're taking over the businesses, and it's like you become a family with your tenants. So it's really interesting to watch how that location feeds so many families.
Yeah, no, it is exciting. It is. So we have one tenant specifically that's got the whole back side of this. It's like a 900 square feet. And he has, I mean, guess it's like a pot shop. Like you buy papers and pipes and, you know, weed's not illegal, but he has like this, you know, like the hippie and the beads and the lights. And I was like, but he's been there already. But he's had that space. He's been paying rent for 30 years. And now his kids are in there, and then his grandkids are in there. All of this. And so my thought is like, dude, you've been renting for there. Why would you not just buy a building? Like, why are you
I say the same thing, but I'm glad they didn't.
Why are you so when I bought the building, it's like, oh, we've been here, you know, 20 years, and I see his kids and his little grandkids, and that's my thing. It's like, okay, but you've been paying rent. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. I don't understand why at some point you wouldn't go, hey, let's move over here and get our own building. Because now it's like the dad and then the son and then the little grandkids are like 7, 8 years old. And I mean, I'm happy. I'm like, hey, you guys can pass this down for 1,000 generations and stay in my building till the end of time. It's like, why would you not get your own building at some point? Especially
I'm with you.
Rent, I think 20 years, I think they've been paying rent.
It's crazy. And then so many times you'll see someone run a successful, call it a restaurant, they'll run it for 30 years or whatever it is, then inevitably their kids probably won't want it or won't be able to run it the same way. Whereas if they had just bought a building and ran a restaurant there, and instead of paid rent, paid for the restaurant, they could sell that building or rent it themselves and be in the real estate business.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to push my tenants out either. There's a time and place. So there is a need to rent sometimes, but I'm with you when I see people rent for 30 years or so. It's just,
Yeah. I said to Mike, I'm like, why have you paid rent? He said, oh, I don't want the responsibility of owning a building. It's like, but you legitimately pay the electric and the heat and you repaint your walls and you keep it clean like you have, other than like the roof falling in. He literally takes care of everything already. And he goes, oh, I don't want that responsibility. And I'm thinking, it's no more responsibility to own the building. But you keep renting. I don't get y'all can rent until like the end of time. But that's what people always say to me is like, oh, I don't want the responsibility of owning a building.
Mm-hmm.
It's
That's
like
what they
it
do.
would be cheaper if you owned the building.
But that is why, like, I'm so happy to have sites like, podcasts like you who are like teaching investors that you don't even have to be in the business. You could be a school teacher, a dentist, whatever you want to be, or work for, be in the armed forces. It doesn't matter. But you could invest in these things. And there's always going to be somebody who wants to rent from you. There'll always be someone there.
Yeah. And, when COVID happened, I remember a few people, I have people in my family that are like, factory workers and, not remotely entrepreneurial minded at all. Oh my God, it's COVID. Everything's shutting down. You guys are going to go broke. All your businesses are going to be empty. It's like, no, they're not. I have people running businesses for decades that do well. We're going to be fine. But, it's just funny how when there's one little thing, everybody's like, oh, that's it. That's why I don't own real estate, just right there. And we didn't have anybody move.
Yeah, that goes back to the mindset that a lot of people tell people when you want to do something great that's outside of your circle of friends and family. Sometimes you got to keep it to yourself because I always say everybody wants you to do great, just don't do any better than them.
Yeah.
And if you start breaking out, the truth is they are a little jealous, and what's that Schadenfreude that they're looking forward to seeing you have a little misery, and the fact that we did all survive COVID, thank God. With financially, I should say, some people had different fortunes, but we made it through. The government helped, the tenants survived, and there's a lot of people who are very bitter about your success there. They're bitter that you had zero interest rates. They're not happy.
Oh yeah, no, I had a few people like, oh, well, I bet you're sorry about all those commercial buildings. It's like, first of all, even if they sat empty until COVID's over and I re-rent them out, I'll have them until the end of time, and then my kids and then my grandkids. So I still wouldn't. And plus, you buy everything like at a super giant discount. So yeah, but it's funny. Yeah, you're right. People are always happy for you to be successful. There's a little piece of them that's like, yeah, but if you fail, I could throw that back
Rub
at
it
you.
in. I'll tell you real quickly. When I bought my first property, I was 25 years old, and I saved all my money, and I put all my money down I had, and I literally had $50 left in my bank account at closing. Put everything I had down because it wasn't great financing. The property had a bunch of vacancies, and I'll never forget that the people I worked with were making fun of me because they were in the stockbroker business. And at that point, stocks were hot, and every technology stock you made would shoot right up. And they were literally laughing at me and bullying me that I was such a fool. And then I went to the closing, and the lawyer that was closing for the bank said to me, well, what are you going to do? And I said, oh, my plan is I'm going to rent these units. I'm going to clean the building up. I'm going to do this, that, and then I'm going to refinance and get my money back out. And he laughed at me and said, you think it's that easy? Everybody would have done it. He goes, I don't think you know what you're in for. And I literally was driving home and said, how bad could it be? I'm 25. I'm not married. I don't have any kids. I said, I got $50 and I have a job, so we'll give it a shot. Well, I'll let you know, I bought it in June. And in December, I refinanced the building. It appraised for $800,000. I got a $600,000 loan. And I walked away from closing with like $12,000 in my hand, in addition to everything I put in, and $5,000 a month in free cash flow after all the bills were paid. And the rest has been history.
That's it.
I have so many of those friends of mine who are brokers who literally bullied me and told me how stupid I was, who are all now coming to me in their 50s saying, how do I buy real estate? So now you want to learn. Well, now it's a different game.
Oh, it's so true.
Yeah.
It's
They'll
so
all
true.
tell you why you can't do it. Don't listen to them.
They do. That's why I always tell people, I'm like, listen, I besides podcasting, I do a lot of webinars and live speaking. I said, listen, the number one thing you have to get past is all the naysayers in your family and friends who will tell you all the reasons why you can't. But the reality is they have their jobs and they're locked in. They don't want to see you go over here because when you're over here, you're somebody else and they don't want to lose the person that you are right here. So
That's
I
right.
always tell people like some of the worst people are your family and friends because they're the naysayers. They're just waiting for you to fall. So, well, I told you, you should have just kept your job. But
Yeah. I don't even know if they'll have bad intentions. I think that, especially my generation and older generations, they're always trained. You're supposed to get a job, buy a house, pay it
yep,
off over 30 years,
yep,
save in your 401k, and take no risks. That's not what you're supposed to do. And what's been proven now is that's entirely wrong. You'll never retire. You'll work forever, and you're going to live worrying about the next stock market collapse or whatever it may be. So I don't even know if everybody has bad intentions for you, or they're just scared, and they're scared for you.
hey, how old are you, Todd?
I'm 50.
Okay, so I'm 64. So
Wow.
when I graduated high school, it was like get a job, work at a factory, get married, have kids, work for the man. And like that's, I was told that my whole life.
Yep.
I started getting into real estate. Oh, you can't make that. You're a woman. And first of all, that was it. You're a woman, and all this stuff. And then, so now, like 30 years later, my cousins and things that are my age are like, well, we're getting ready to retire. We don't really have the kind of money that we thought we were going to have. And can you help me with buying some rentals and stuff? It's like, I offered you free training for the last 20 years. Now you want my help?
Yeah.
And it
It's
is,
entirely it's
I
entirely
don't
true.
think they have ill intentions, but your parents ingrained, and like I was ingrained to get out of high school, get married, have kids, work at a factory until I was 60. Like that's all I heard about. And there was no go to college, there was no be an entrepreneur, there was no move to the city. So a lot of that is just what's ingrained because your parents teach you what they know.
Yeah. It's
And
entirely
my
correct.
kids, I'm like, if you guys get a job for the next 30 years, I will all kill you all myself. You are all going to be entrepreneurs that own rentals and own commercial. And this, and nobody's going to work for anybody else. But it's
And
just a
and
different
that and
mindset.
that's right. That's the way it should be. And I'm just like you in that sense. I debate all of that with people, and they say, no, you buy a house and you should pay it off and live there. And I said, that means if you bought your house when you were, say, 25 years old, you're good at 25 forever. Like, you want to keep moving up. Like, at least they're going to
Yeah.
buy a house every 5 years. So, but like, no, I'm going to get a 30-year fixed mortgage and pay it off. I'm like, so you're good at 25. You topped out at 25. The only thing you want is to own this house free and clear. You kind of given up, and there's no dream left there.
No, I know. It's it's funny because I feel that way because I have so many cousins that are my age now. Like, oh, we're retired, and they worked at factories. And they've
Yeah,
got the joints and this and all the issues in their house, and they're like, I don't have any money, and then they see us like flying all over the place and doing all the
yeah,
stuff. It's like, okay, but I took a risk, and now I've been
that's
doing
right.
it for 30 years, and I've offered all of my family and cousins like, come and do this, and not one person did, and now they're all like, well, now we want to learn. I'm like, honey, listen, I'm all up in my eyeballs and my own stuff. So here's one of my programs, teach yourself, and good luck. You've had, 30, 40 years as an adult. You've had to come and let me show you or even work with me or invest with me or
Yeah,
something. So it is funny. It is funny how people are. And I think people are, happy for your success to a point as long as you're not too successful.
yeah, 100%.
When you get like up here and you've got like a plane or something, or they're just like, oh wow, like oh, rich and famous, and it's like I literally worked my ass off.
But I'll tell you from my side, when I bought my first building, I couldn't be more proud. And I told all the tenants, I'm here, I'm the new owner. And it was so great. We built these relationships. But then every time they wanted something, they knew I was the owner. I had to make a decision. So by my second building, I started telling people, I'm not the owner, I'm the manager, because they all purchased an LLC. So I said, no, I'm the manager of the LLC. I'm not the owner. So when they asked me, I said, I got to go check with the owner. So I never tell anybody I'm the owner anymore.
I never do either. It's so funny. I don't know, like my first five rentals were single family homes, and I would like know the owners, and they'd call and go, oh, Miss Dwan, this happened and that happened, and I got to pay my rent late. And Miss Dwan, can you not charge me the late fee?
Yeah,
And I was like, gosh darn, these people are taking advantage of me. So I
yeah,
started the same thing. I went to a class one day. People were talking about being landlords. They said, don't tell your tenants, don't be friends with them. Let them put in a corporation, tell them that, you're the property manager or whatever you want to do. So then I start doing that. So people would ask for something, and I say, well, I can talk to the owner, but she's a bitch. And if I go to with
I do the same thing.
things, I don't want to lose my job.
Yeah.
I need you to pay all the stuff and do the things because I don't want to lose my job. And like no one's ever bothered me since.
Yeah. That's the way to do it. There's a
And
lot
I
of pride in ownership, but just keep it quiet.
that's why I tell everyone, I'm like, hey, listen, if you're buying even just a little tiny single family home, do not tell the tenant you're the owner because they'll start wanting favors and could you paint this? Could you do that? And
Mhm.
I gotta pay late. Could I break the rent up? And there's whatever. So
Yeah,
just tell them you work for the person and if they're horrible and you don't want to lose your job.
yeah. That's the best answer you can give.
The first time I did that, this poor lady Cynthia, I said, look, the owner, she's so mean. I said, she's bad. She fires everyone. Like I'm a single mom. I'm afraid to lose my job. She said, oh no, no, never mind. I'll take care of it myself. And I was like, so it was like the first time it ever happened. It was like an
Yeah.
epiphany. Like, this is the greatest thing
This is
ever.
all you had to do. Yep.
That's all I had to do. And so now, like 30 years later, it's just like, and we have a property manager and stuff. And I can sometimes go to my buildings and go in and walk around and people don't even know who I am.
Yep. That's the best way.
It's like, y'all don't need to know nothing about me. All you need to know is that's a property manager and you need to pay all the stuff and don't be calling me for favors. It is funny. But you have to train your tenants.
Yeah.
And once you get them all trained, I think owning property, commercial, all of it, I think it's like the most fun thing you can do.
I think it's the greatest investment you can make. I think it's been proven over time to be the best investment.
Yeah.
It's an investment where, what was it? A month ago, there was a run on all the banks. And I saw all my friends who had money. And look, I was guilty of it too. You start moving money because you said, wait a second, I'm really only insured to 250,000. You could have a problem. People scattering and people didn't even want to have cash.
I
Like, I
know.
didn't have my real estate. You're not going to come pick up my building and move it. I mean, so you want hard assets and they're the greatest things. And let me tell you, I'm a single dad. I have two daughters. I say my real estate will go to my daughters. I mean, they're young. They're 16 and 18 now. And I pray everything works out great. But I know with these buildings, they'll always be okay if something happened to me. And I'm responsible for them now. They're not even in college. But if
Yeah.
God forbid something happens, they're going to be financially fine.
Yeah.
And you can do that with real estate. You can't do that with anything else.
No, I'm the same way. We've got all of our stuff worked out to our kids down to our grandkids.
Yeah.
It's like, hey, and Bill and I are both from the Midwest. I'm from Ohio and he's from Iowa. And in our families, we're the first two people in our whole generations that ever became millionaires.
That's amazing. Good for you.
And I said, okay, we did it. And when we met each other, we were both real estate investors and we met already as investors. I said, so we are now responsible to create generational wealth. So the people
Right.
my side of the food chain, we're down to our grandkids having stuff, but nobody ever did. We're the first ones. And I remember when I first started making a lot of money, I didn't even tell my parents how much I was making because I thought, first of all, what if I can't make it again? And secondly, what if they tell everyone and people won't all borrow money from me and the whole thing. So we kept a lot of our success just quiet
Well,
because
I still do that to this day. Look, I mean, I work in a nice office because we run a big management company. But I tell people I come in, I don't wear it, not even an Apple Watch and a wedding ring. I drive my fancy car is a Cadillac Escalade because it's very work related. I got to sometimes drive to construction sites. Yet it's nice. You're not going to see me zipping around in all these fancy cars with jewelry and bling all over. I don't have necklaces.
no,
In Miami,
I'm like that too.
exactly. In Miami, you could go downtown Miami, you're going to see the kid in a Lamborghini with the top down and a $200,000 watch, and you can't write a check for $50.
Exactly.
When you really own assets and you really have money, I mean, look at Elon Musk. You'll never see the guy wearing anything fancy. You want to keep it simple. And part of the reason is because you love what you do so much. I don't want to buy more cars. I want to buy more property.
That's right.
So people say oh, well, don't you want to buy the property and then you can make some money and go buy a boat? Well, you say that until you actually have the choice and say, well, wait, I could buy a boat or I could buy one more property. And if you truly love it, you probably stop buying, the boats and the cars and start buying more real estate. There's nothing wrong with buying the boats and cars if you have the cash flow.
I'm with it.
But you'll see when you get there, like you said, once you have the money, the things are no longer important.
Yeah, I was that way. I always had to have the car and all the stuff. And I don't know, 10 years in, I thought, you know what? I'm spending so much money on all this stupid stuff over here. I'd rather buy something else. So I stopped. Like my car right now, I live in the mountains, so I have a Hummer, and it's 15 years old, but it's paid for. It's got 4-wheel drive. It's got all the stuff I need, and I can haul stuff with it. And it's like, if you oh, you should buy like a Land Rover, a Range Rover. Da, da, da. I'm like, listen, I'm not spending 100 grand on a car because I could buy 2 buildings over there with that
Right.
money. But at some point, you do. You reach a point where you don't have to be flashy anymore. And maybe some people never are, but I was sort of like I felt like I had to be a little bit flashy. And then
Yeah.
after I did that, I thought, if someone like robbed me at a stoplight, they'd get all my jewelry, all my watch. They get so much stuff. It's like, you know what? I'm just gonna be like, this is it. And it's like that book, the Millionaire Next Door. People
Yeah.
don't need to know what you have.
It's true. And, I always call it like a great privilege that I have some friends that are pictures are in Forbes and they're billionaires.
Yeah.
And they are some of the nicest, most humble people. And I could think of 3 of them right now if I was having lunch with them. You'd think I was definitely the richest guy because I'm wearing a button-down shirt. And they're just laid back and simple. And they're not tech guys either. They're just simple. And
I
that's
know.
what I think people have to get over. There's always that expression, fake it till you make it. Well, maybe that's in certain things, but you certainly don't have to try and fake it by acting rich if you're not. First get rich, and then you'll realize that showing off is not important at all.
Was at a real estate meeting the other night, and this guy walks in. He's got Balenciaga. What the hell's that name brand?
Oh, Balenciaga. Yeah, I know. Yeah.
Yeah, Balenciaga. He's got the shoes. He's got this really expensive watch. This guy is like dripping in brand names, and I thought he probably doesn't have $5 in the bank.
But he probably has 1 million followers on Instagram, and he just bought his new
Probably. And I was
verification
like,
week, and yeah, exactly.
dude, and there's just like so much stuff, and just the hair, and these really expensive sunglasses, and I thought he's wearing $10,000 worth of stuff. He probably doesn't have a pot to piss in. And that's the first thing I thought. It's like, well, if you got to show off like that, you don't have anything.
Well, you know what the investor has to be careful of? There's a lot of guys like that are walking around showing off, and they're telling people how to buy their program and get involved in real estate, or even if it's Bitcoin or whatever, telling you this is how you're going to get rich, but that's not how they're getting rich. And I so many seminars and so many things where they're going to teach you how to flip a house, invest in real estate, but they're not doing it. All their money is made in a mastermind course or something like that. And that is the worst person in the world to listen to. Just find anybody who's actually doing it, someone you could mirror and copy them. Don't copy the guy who's going to sell you the program. And these things are very expensive. Some of them 10, 20, 30,000 for a weekend.
Yeah.
And there's some very well-known names, and they don't even buy real estate. It's like a joke. I'm like, how do you sleep with yourself at night? It's insane.
No, I know it. I know it. I say the exact same things to people. It's like, you want to learn from somebody, learn from someone who's actually doing it.
Yeah.
Still doing it. Like, that's the key.
And that's why I like to do these podcasts. I wrote a book and I said, I don't even want to make any money off it. I give all the proceeds to charity. So anyone who reads it knows it's not even for me. It's going to benefit a charity. And actually, the charity I give the money to is called Crew Network, which is to get women involved in commercial real estate. So I want nothing out of it. Those are the people to follow.
Called?
It's not mine. It's an organization called Crew Network. And Crew is it's a nationwide organization with thousands of members. And it helps women get involved in commercial real estate because they're still very small minority in commercial real estate. And like I said, I have 2 young daughters, so I push everything for women nowadays.
Yeah, that's so nice that you do that, though, because that is true. When I first started off, and I was a rehabber in the beginning, and I would go to real estate meetings, and there would be no women there, and they'd be like, "Oh, so you and your husband work?" I was like, "No husband, just me." Like, "You're a real estate investor?" And it was like I needed a husband or something, and I thought, yeah, I'm doing all right. And I have 2 daughters now, and they own building, they own stuff, and it's like, so I love that you do that to help women because real estate still is more of a man's business still today.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of women in it, but a lot of women are in it with a spouse or a partner, but it is still very much more of a man's business than a woman's business.
It is. And if you actually went to Crew and you could read the stats, and you'd see the numbers not even that far apart. But when you look at the jobs the men have versus the women, it's just so unfair. And part of the problem is there's so many great jobs in real estate. And I tell people, everybody should get a real estate license. Everybody should become, if you want to get involved, do some leasing, try and do some brokerage and learn the business while you're in it. But for whatever the reason is, it seems the women are still holding back from going after those commission-based jobs. And that's where the money is. It is so disproportionate, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah, no, it is. I raise up my girls, and I do workshops and seminars and stuff too. And I'm like, listen, women. you can do this on your own. Like, there's just so much opportunity. But you're right. And a lot of it's mindset and society and just like blah,
Mhm.
all the stuff, But I'm glad
That's
you do
true.
that for your daughters, because they have kids and they have daughters, and that your family will have all this great generational wealth because you started, working and helping the girls in your life.
And that's right. I mean, listen, my daughter is 18 now, my older daughter. And in the state of Florida, to be licensed as a realtor, you don't have to just be 18. You also have to graduate high school. So she's studying for the test now because she graduates, this coming in May. So immediately after graduating, she'll get a license. You know what?
Yep.
I want to send her the lease, but she's not going to work for me because she's already done that. I'm going
Yep.
to send her to work for some other companies, and I want her to learn how to lease office and work in different industries.
Yep.
If she wants to come back, that's great. But I want her to learn how to lease. Let me tell you, if you have a license in real estate, you really are willing to work, you could always make money. And I don't care which state you're in, you could always make money.
Yeah, I told both my girls, I said, now listen, I said, I graduated high school in the 70s, and it was very much like I said, get married, have kids,
Mm-hmm.
get a job done. And I said, a man is not a plan.
Yeah.
So y'all aren't gonna like get married and your man's your plan. You're gonna have your own thing. And if you meet up with somebody, like I met my husband, yeah, this was a great dynamic thing, but a man is not a plan. So I preach that to my girls forever because I don't, that's just not reality anymore. And I want them to be independent and self-sufficient. And if they want to have it, like I've been married 21 years. I love my husband. We work together. We built like this little mini empire, but I was already building it by myself.
Mm.
And then you get the right person, you're like, psh. But yeah, so I tell
100%.
women all the time, a man is not a plan, a man is not a plan, a man is not a plan. Be your
Now,
own.
look, even if a woman is lucky enough to meet a great guy and he has a great career and he's going to support you, you want to feel good about yourself. Then investing in real estate is even better because you could take risks. You don't have to worry about making money to pay any bills.
Yeah,
You could do this alongside. And let me tell you, your husband is doing fantastic as, whatever he's doing as a dentist. You're the one who's going to put him in retirement with all the buildings. So work together, build,
yeah,
like I
work
said, build an
together.
empire.
Yeah,
No one's
do
going to
it.
do it on their own. You're only going so far on your own.
Yeah, no, I'm the same. I could not agree with you more. So, all right, so let's jump topics for a minute. Tell
Okay.
me your favorite band of all time.
I'm fair. Who?
Your favorite band of
My
all time.
favorite band. My favorite band of all time. It'd probably have to be one guy. I'd probably go back to Billy Joel. I think he's fantastic. Although I did just take my daughter to Taylor Swift, so she may be my new fan. I might be her new biggest fan. We saw her concert in Texas last weekend. Boy, what a talent she is.
Are you going to be a Swiftie?
I know that's what they keep telling me. I'm going to be a Swift. They said, but do you understand the girl had 85,000 people and did a 3-hour concert with no break, and it was the
I
third
know.
night in a row. I'm like, this girl's something else.
She's a rock star. All right, Billy Joel. So we'll do Billy Joel, back up Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift did. And the other thing I love about Taylor Swift is she went on her own and went to all the record labels and door knocked them all and got a deal. She didn't have a manager producer. Like she literally went out there and made that happen. And there's not a lot of people that can say that. So it's like,
She
kudos
is
to
an
her.
extraordinary talent.
Yeah, she is. My kids love her. She's so cute. My little grandkids are just like, Taylor Swift. And it's like, she's so cute. Okay. What's your favorite food?
Italian food. I'm Italian, so that's an easy one.
Do you have a favorite Italian restaurant there in Hollywood?
Well, not in Hollywood, but I have a favorite Italian restaurants down here, yeah. Now, by my house, I live in Sunny Isles Beach, it's Casa D'Angelo, but in Miami, where I was last night, is Cipriani. That's my favorite food.
I'm gonna have to try that. I love Italian food too. And we have a house in Delray Beach, and I
You
haven't
have some good
been to
ones
one.
up there.
Is there? I'll have to
On
check
Atlantic
next time
Avenue. I
I'm-
forget the name, but there's a famous one on Atlantic Avenue you have to go try. If you just Google Italian restaurant Atlantic Avenue, it's gonna come up. It's been there forever. It's amazing.
Okay, I'll have to do that because my husband's not crazy, but he's all Mexican. And I'm like, no, so we get some Italian food. So I go down there by myself. It's like so I'm gonna text you like, hey, I'm in this city. Where's the best Italian? So I love Italian food. It's like, oh,
Yeah.
I could eat it. Yeah, I love it. Okay, let me ask you another question. What's your favorite time of day? What's your favorite part of your day?
I find I have the most energy in the afternoons and evenings. I'm a very routine-based person. It's like I wake up every morning. I read my book every morning. About my book, I read a book every morning. I like to work out in the mornings when I don't go to work. I work out later in the afternoons when I do. So I'm pretty structured. I do the same thing. I'm pretty disciplined. I'm lucky I could come and go as I please, but I'm pretty routine-based in that. But I find that between like 3 o'clock and 11 o'clock, I have a lot of energy.
You know, it's funny. I do too. And 99% of the people, I ask everybody what's their favorite part of the day. Almost everyone says, "Oh, I get up at 5 a.m." and like that's their favorite part of the day. I'm like, no, I like at the end of the day when it's like time to relax and have a glass of wine and like, so
That
hardly
could be why
anybody.
that's my favorite part too, because then it's okay to drink, I guess, also. But yeah, the morning is always like it's so hectic. Your phone is ringing, you're answering emails. It's like, you blink, it's lunchtime already. So
Yeah,
yeah.
no,
And if I wake up at 5 in the morning, it was a mistake. I didn't mean to wake up at 5 in the morning. I'm going to try to go back to bed. I'm not part of that club I see all the time, that 5
I
a.m.
know
club.
all these people
I
are
don't
like,
want
you
to be
gotta
there.
get up at 5 a.m. and work out. And it's like, dude, if I see 5 a.m., it's because I'm coming in, not because I'm getting up.
Yeah.
It's not happening. And I tried all that, but I was like, you know what? I like to like have a later. I guess I get up at like 8, not a super hectic, but I like the end of the day when you just sit back and maybe put on a movie and have some wine and just like,
Yeah,
this is so lovely. I had a great day today. So I am
absolutely.
also an evening person.
Yeah.
And now, so let's just review. So Todd Nepola, and you can be reached at, hold on, Todd at cc-reg.com.
Correct.
And Life According to Todd on Instagram. So I can't wait to start following Life According to Todd. It's like, oh, that's like the best Instagram handle I've ever heard. And so you buy commercial, and some tips were, local buildings, learning how to add value, which is really important, and triple net leases. We love that. And I thought you gave a great explanation. So I take notes. And you gave a really great explanation about what triple net leases are. And then if someone reached out to you, would you help them find a building, or would you do it in coaching or mentoring, or do you do anything like that?
Well, I do a lot of mentoring and coaching with a lot of the younger generation. I like the high school and college kids because
Yeah.
to me, that's the greatest time to get involved. But
Yeah.
why I offer my email and phone numbers, because I tell people, I'm not going to go out and find you a deal. I'm trying to find myself deals. But if you come across a deal or something you have a question about, I'm happy to take a phone call and answer it. If you're at the finish line of a deal and you're scared and you want someone to just put a second set of, review of it and help you out, I'm happy to help anybody. A deal that works in Florida works anywhere probably in the planet. It's just understanding the underwriting. So I'm always happy to encourage people to get involved and to do whatever it takes.
I agree. And you got to pay it forward. You learn all that and you make all that
100%.
money, and like you're helping your girls, and like you got to pay it forward because you'll be more blessed that way.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
You get to a point where it's more fun to give helping people than it is to buy a building. I had a friend that for 20 years told me he was going to buy a property and never did. He's a great guy and he's married. He got married very young and he has kids. And it was just a week or two ago, he sent me a picture. I finally did it. I bought my first townhouse and I'm going to rent it out. And I was so excited for this guy because he's probably around 40, 45 years old now.
Yeah.
His whole life is going to change now. It's so exciting. But whenever you get started in the game, you just got to get started.
Yeah. It's never too late. It's like, I tell people, listen, it's better to start and fail than to never start. Because if you don't start, you're guaranteed failure.
Yeah, 100%.
So you got to just take chance. I don't know. I think people also, like you and like me, I think we also have a higher risk factor by nature because we want to go start our business and do our thing and not be tied down to somebody that's giving me a paycheck every week. So I think you have to have a little bit of a risk factor to also be involved in the real estate business.
I agree entirely with what you're saying, but I think if there's anything people are learning today is that I think it's a bigger risk to go work for a company. I mean, just this week, last week, McDonald's said they're going to cut a third of their corporate board. I mean, the corporate office is like, you talking about the Midwest, you took a job in McDonald's corporate. You thought you were a lifer and you're going to get a gold watch on your 30-year anniversary and go home. You're going to get fired.
Disney
so I
has
think
laid
not
off
taking a risk is the risk.
7,000 people.
Yeah. I mean, that's where the risk is. And, they're talking about this great recession that's going to happen and we're going to have a recession. These companies, they're not wrong to lay people off, but that's your risk. I mean, Google laid off, there was on TV the other day on CNBC, Google laid off 2 people that were husband and wife, and they each made over $1 million a year apiece. And they fired them both. They said, how does this couple go home? They've lost a multi-million-dollar income and they're both out of work. Like, that's a risk. So I think people have to take responsibility for themselves and they really have to find a way to invest.
I can
or have a side hustle.
I feel, like my dad, like I work in the car factories, and I get it. He did that, and that was great for that generation. But Shoot,
Absolutely.
most of my friends that got those jobs after high school, within a decade or so, General Motors, I mean, everybody
Yep,
got laid off, everybody lost their jobs, and those places are not even there now. They're just
that's
gone.
right.
And it's like, I don't want to be that person that's 50 years old and my company, like your friends, just lay you off and there you go. It's like, just take the risk for yourself. It always pays off.
It really does. And I know people always say they're so afraid of what could go wrong. And I always say, well, what could go right? And a lot of things could go right. And, you could look at me, you could look at you, you could look at the tens of thousands of other people who have invested in real estate. And they've all said the same thing. Yes, it's a little scary when you get involved. Certainly it gets scary as you get older and you have, families and kids to be dependent upon you. But generally, it doesn't go wrong.
It doesn't.
Generally, maybe you lose a tenant. Yeah, eventually you're going to lose a tenant. Even if that tenant is thriving, maybe they move to a bigger location. We have that also, and they leave me. But generally it works out. And if they just look into other real estate investors who have done what we both do, they'll see that the bad times weren't so bad. Maybe instead of making $10, you made 4, but very rarely do people lose money in buildings unless they have too much debt. Very rarely.
Yeah, no, I cannot agree more. And I love it when I get to meet someone who's like so like-minded because we are definitely our own breed, real estate investors for sure. But yeah, the bigger risk is not doing anything. So okay, last thing.
100%.
I want you to leave us with a parting word of wisdom, but actually just one single word.
Passion.
Ooh, good word. Passion. And what does passion mean to you?
Passion means you got to love what you do. And if you don't love it, don't do it. And that includes investing in real estate. Don't invest in real estate just because you want to have a financial freedom. If you don't love it, it's not worth it. So you got to be passionate about it. I am lucky I don't have to work anymore and I work harder than ever. And I laugh about that sometimes because when I had to work, I worked less. And I would do this on Saturday and Sunday if my wife would let me. And I have friends in the business that are the same way. So when you truly love it, it's not work. And you'll find the real estate isn't the means to the end. The real estate is the end because you love what you're doing. And you know what? You go to sleep at night with a lot of peace of mind and you're happy and fulfilled. And it's a short ride, this life. So you better find some passion and enjoy what the hell you're doing.
Amen. I cannot agree with you more. That is awesome. I love what passion means. Passion means basically about the same thing to me. So I love that. All right, guys. So Life According to Todd on Instagram, and I gave you the email, todd@cc-reg.com. Check this guy out. You are just such a wealth of information. I want to thank you so much for being on the show today. I really enjoyed getting to know you. And, I have a house in Delray. So next time I come down, we're going to go have us some Italian food.
Done deal.
Because I love it. So
And I'm the excuse. That's why you have to go. So we'll get together. You can tell your husband, we have to go.
You have to know like the authentic Italian food places.
I know the good places. My wife is Cuban, so between the Cuban and the Italian, us, we'll figure it out.
Oh my goodness. My husband will just come along begrudgingly, but he'll come. So
we'll find the good place.
All right, everyone. Thank you for being here. Again, go to Dwanderful.com. Opt in. I've got some free ebooks for you. And I just want you to do me a favor. If you had fun today, if you learned anything, if you laughed, anything, subscribe to the podcast, the most wonderful real estate podcast ever. Leave a 5-star review because I can't be number 1 without you. And we'll be back next week, same bat time, same bat channel. And remember that the truth is in the red letters. All right, Todd, thank you. Everybody, ciao.